So it's Ken from Mauritius. I just want to say hi to everybody that's out there. We just say thank you for joining us again, whether you're joining us live, and we've got a handful of people over here that have joined us, or whether you're going to be watching the video afterwards. We just want to say thank you. And I want to start off by saying thank you to every single person that's joined us in this coffee club exercise. The whole exercise was started as a result of the fact that the Occupational Health and Safety Act was going to be amended, and they sent out this document called the Amendment Bill and called for commentary. And we got the coffee club up and running with that. But I have been doing this in the past, and some of you may and have been part of it. We've hosted over 60 webinars so far since the onset of COVID. And it was a matter of orientation, information, education, whatever we could do just to involve and sort of provide information to people in such a way that they could pick it up and run with it as quickly as possible. And from a personal point of view, it's been hugely successful because we've been able to reach lots and lots of people that we would have never been in contact with. So having said that, it's really a matter of saying thank you once again. Thank you to those that joined us. And then when the coffee club was started, I think it was early in March when we heard about the change to the legislation. Ďeḽ𝙤𝙤, you can just nod your head if it was early March. I think it was. And we started the process and we got the conversation going. One of the things that I set out to do at that stage was not to do the work for the members. SAIOSH has done that for us, but I wanted to engage people and to get them to do the work themselves, which is where a lot of learning has taken place. So I provide the stimulus, and then people pick up on it, and they start running with it, and then they have their own meetings, and then they have their own discussions, and so forth. And I've had some lovely feedback, not an enormous amount, but I've had some lovely feedback where people have been running sessions within their organizations or for their clients or for their own staff members. And then we decided to make the training material available, certainly the Occupational Health and Safety Act, the PowerPoints and the facilitator guides and learner guides and things. We had a couple of workshops, which were quite useful. We ran them 2 4-hour workshops and then a 5-hour workshop so that people could discuss the legislation and get to know it and clarify certain things. We also had a wonderful collaborator in the form of Richard Whittaker, because Richard took a document that I put together for SAIOSH, where I took the current act and then the proposed amendments, and I put them together in this hub, really bit of a mess, wasn't it, Richard? Document, and I try to get the sections to sort of parallel. And Richard deliberately cut it up, reposted, repasted. You did a brilliant job. Thank you, Richard. And that is the document, Richard's document, and that SAIOSH has used ultimately for the discussions, and that also landed up now being sent to the Department of Employment and Labor. Richard, unfortunately, all it says is thank you for the collaborator, or thank you to the collaborators. It doesn't have your name, doesn't have my logo or anything like that, but so be it. So Richard, I want to say thank you, and everybody just give Richard a round of applause. It's like a visual round of applause for the work that he did. Many hours, I'm sure, that you spent on that. So the process then developed, and I was then invited to participate in the SAIOSH Technical Committee, which was a huge privilege. I mean, honestly, I thought I knew the legislation. And I walked away after every single session going up to Penny and saying, wow, there is so much stuff I do not know, because we had 2 attorneys, 1 advocate and 1 attorney, Reynard Luke and Ernst van Biljon. Boy, these guys know the legislation. They take it apart. They literally rip it apart. And they discuss it from a legal point of view, not just a functional, operational point of view. And they talk about both the prosecutorial processes as well as the defendant's situation, as well as us, where we need to educate people. And it was just so interesting. It was actually mind-blowing at times. And I would go upstairs and just sit there like dumbstruck, because even though I've been in the world of occupational health and safety for 30 years, and even though I come out of a policing background where I was involved in the whole prosecutorial process, there was so much I'd missed, absolutely so much that I'd missed. And they took this and they shuffled it around and they discussed it. Now, there was another person on that committee, a man by the name of Garth Hunter. And I think, Richard, you know Garth. I didn't know this, but Garth has a master's degree in some medical science. He's actually a medical technologist, and then became an occupational hygienist, and then he was a Department of Labor inspector for a while, and he now works for NGEN. And Garth's understanding of these things is something else. It's kind of like his understanding of legislation and the processes and English and all the other bits and pieces, different level, really different level to me. And Not apologizing, but it was just wonderful to be able to learn and listen to this man. He also serves on a number of these technical committees, and he was responsible for drafting the asbestos abatement regulation. And so he writes legislation for the Department of Employment and Labor, does the research, discusses it, goes through they call them TCs, the technical committees, and Garth makes these contributions as if he was working for the Department of Employment and Labor, which he doesn't. But wow, once again. And then the culmination of all of that was this document with the commentary from a legal point of view, with concise, detailed commentary. So the recommendation would, let's say, section 16, it would be, this is the current one, this is the proposed one, and this is what we're saying. And what you are saying is unconstitutional, and here's all the case law as to where you're going wrong. They declared that whoever wrote this piece of legislation, the proposed legislation that came out already in, Bruce, you and I discussed this back in 2014, that whoever wrote that legislation didn't take the Constitution into account. And it was pre-Constitution, or it was written before the Constitution. Now, what I discovered is that the Mines Health and Safety Act is post democratization in South Africa. So the Mines Health and Safety Act is a lot more constitutionally correct than the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And this draft bill didn't reflect some of the stuff that was in the Mines Health and Safety Act. And Klaas, Reinhard Louch, at least, he knows the Mines Health and Safety Act intimately because he's an attorney, he's an advocate. And he was able to draw on stuff out of that legislation and saying, this is what we need in this legislation. And otherwise they're just going to stumble over these constitutional issues. And some of the things that we picked up in that legislation, obviously from a prosecutorial process, if you were a prosecutor, you couldn't prosecute the person. It was so badly written that you wouldn't be able to actually tie the accused down. Which is like, wow. And the powers that they were trying to, or are trying to give to the inspectors, where they were not constitutional, and so forth. And I'm sure many of you picked up these things. We went through this. Then there was one thing, what my sole major contribution, other than just commentary as we went along, agree, don't agree, and reread, was this thing called competency, the definition of competency. Now, something that I learned as a result of this entire process was this, that you can't just write a definition and stick it into section 1 in the Act. That definition must relate to some section that's in the Act. So if you want to write a definition, you have to write the section. You have to rewrite the section or reconfigure it or redefine it in the section, and to merely say competency. So that's what we've done. I wrote a definition of my understanding of competency. In fact, it was based on New Zealand legislation. Somebody from New Zealand and I have been discussing this issue and have been discussing it from some time now. And I then proposed that the South African legislation lines up with the New Zealand legislation as far as competency is concerned. And here's an interesting thing. And look, I mean, none of this is cast in concrete yet. It's obviously, there's going to be a whole discussion process, but where we have competency in South Africa, it's generally based on a common law principle of competency. That's the first thing. That has been hijacked by SAQA. And SAQA then declares a person competent or not yet competent. But that competency has and holds no real substance in terms of law, because that is contradictory to the common law definition of competency. And that's what we try to do, is we try to make sure that if a person is competent, who determines that person is competent? Is that competency determined by a service provider who's a SETA accredited service provider who has absolutely no knowledge of the employer's environment and risk profile and the employee's risk profile? So a SETA accredited company can run a course, put them through the hoops and hurdles of the whole SETA, I call it the NQF verification cycle. The person is declared competent, well, statement of results and competent. Competent to what? To the exam. That's all. There's assessments. The internal assessments, there are two. There's a summative and a formative assessment. That's all they're competent for, because they've never been put into the workplace and said, do the job and let's observe you doing the job. It's all theory, or largely theory. And the definition from New Zealand is the employer declares the person competent. Wow. So that was quite a thought, you know. Now, the rationale is, and I put that forward, the rationale is if the employer feels it appropriate to appoint an individual, to hire them, to put them through the selection process, selection and placement as per normal human resources practices and things like it, why should the employer not say, I employed a competent person? And we had long discussions. This was like almost a 2-hour discussion over the period around this competency thing. So hopefully we'll get clarity on it. And ultimately it will be the employer who determines the employee competent, and not some, excuse me saying, Johnny come lately SETA accredited training operation from Brakpan or Boxburg. Whoa. And then as a result of that, how does that impact on that training provider? Because the employer might find the person not competent, and yet the training provider says, no, they're competent. But the employer is unhappy with the competency or the skill level. Lovely conversations, lovely, lovely, lovely conversations. Okay, so I just want to quickly see, 𝙿𝙤𝙚, I must talk to you about that topic. I would love to talk to her. I'll take it all over, all of it, whatever she's got. Yeah, well, it depends on the price. So this is the conversation that was going backwards and forwards, and I would then walk out and I'd obviously try and shrink my brain back into the original size. And then I would do my homework in the evenings and read the commentary and things like that. And these two attorneys and Garth Hunter did an absolutely sterling job. Sterling, sterling, sterling. But where to from here? So as you know, the document has now been sent to the Department of Employment and Labour, to the Chief Inspector. And Richard, that's the topic that you can just raise because you want to still make comments, which is fantastic. And it's necessary. Now, apparently, there is a whole process which speculatively could take another 18 months before we even see it in place. Because now it's got to go to committees, and it's got to go to the Law Commission, and it's got to go to all these other people. And because you probably noticed that the legislation is heavily skewed towards unions, trade unions. We've been saying, hang on, this is not fair, it's not constitutional. There are 3 different parties here. There's state, there's employer, and the employee. And they need to be satisfied with this legislation. So we can't run with it yet, but we can educate. And I think that that's going to be a very important part of what we're going to be doing. Education, education, education. And I mean, 𝙿𝙤𝙚, what you've been doing is just absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. It's just exquisite what you've done. Okay, so that's where we are at the moment. And the question that people have been asking me is like, okay, what do we do now? So there are a couple of things we want to do, but before we go there, I want to just quickly do a whip around of everybody. We're not doing a PowerPoint, so if you'd like to unmute yourself, please feel free to just unmute yourself. I'm going to start with Richard. Richard, you and I had a brief discussion in terms of some of your thoughts around the bill, and you have some concerns because the deadline is only on the 30th. By the way, that was another thing. How do you interpret that? They say it must be in by the 31st. On the 31st or by the 31st? Must it be in by the 30th? Oh, I don't know. Okay, over to Richard. Richard, your thoughts. Hi, Karen.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. I was beetling away on at my own speed, which was a little bit slower than your committee's speed, and so I got quite a shock when I saw the thing pop out of the woodwork, and I went to double check to see if it was in fact the 31st of July. I thought maybe it was a week earlier, and I missed the vote. 𝙿𝙤𝙚 had given me some of her comments to add to mine, and the Master Builders Association Western Cape invited me to a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and we brought up some issues there. So I had my own thoughts, that from 𝙿𝙤𝙚 and that from Master Builders, to put together. Of course, now I haven't got the opportunity to give it to SIOSH, but what I've done is I've gone through my document and the SIOSH submission. I've eliminated all the items that I had in my list that appeared on the SIOSH list, so there can be no fingers pointing and saying, oh, but you're messing up with our vote because now suddenly you're putting holes in our argument and so on. So I thought rather back off from that. I took the liberty of removing SIOSH's logo and replacing it with mine. And put my name on it. So what I think my next step is probably to send that to 𝘃𝙏𝙗 with my comments, and out of courtesy, of course, copy 𝘦𝙗𝙗 to say this is what I've submitted, and I deliberately missed out everything that you already allocated to your report.
Excellent.
So if everyone's happy with that, then I will press the button forthwith.
Fantastic. Richard, and I just want to say thank you for the example. We really appreciate that, because I trust that that's happened a lot, where people have looked at it now and they've said, we agree, we disagree, we'd like to add to it. And because that was an exercise. It really, really was an exercise. I want to go to Rian de Villiers. Rian, I just want to say, hi, how are you doing, man? And do you have any comments on the processes up to now with the Occupational Health and Safety Amendment Bill in gedagtes? What have you done with it? What do you want to do with it over the next couple of days?
Hi, Ken. Nice to be here again. Nice to see all the people also. Yes, I'm so busy with working with my comments that I want to make, what I want to add, what I want to put forward even before or by the 30th June of the problem. But yeah, there's a few things that we can talk about and that we can discuss and that we can look at. But I think the most important thing is that there's a lot of things in that act that are going to make life very difficult. And we need to try to make life not as difficult as they want to make it for us. And we need to really step up and take control, if I can use the word control. We do have the right to comment, and they are not allowed just to push that absolutely there are too many comments on it. So that I think will make it much longer than 18 months, because if they are going to make amendments on the amendments, they first have to republish it again to make sure that the public is now happy before it can go through the whole procedure. So we will see. We will see what will happen and how it will pan out in the next few months.
I'd like to see your comments as well. Richard, if you wouldn't mind sending yours to me, just out of curiosity sake. And then Rian, if you have any comments that you want to send to me, that would be fantastic. Yeah. I really appreciate that. And I've just seen 1 or 2 new people have come. Devan's come back again. That's great. Right. At this stage, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump to 𝙃𝙗𝙗, because you've been quite... 𝙃𝙗𝙗𝙗, can you repeat what you said earlier on and just tell us your thoughts around both the process as well as the content?
Are you talking about the videos or?
Okay, first talk about the videos, what you've done, because I think that's useful, really useful, and then what your, just any other commentary around the bill.
Okay, look, I think just overall, I think this amendment bill, when it came out, has now been pretty thoroughly interrogated by both the technical committee and persons around the coffee club, you know, and then of course there have been many comments on the 𝘦𝙗𝙗𝙗 website, you know, people putting their comments online there. So there's been a lot of activity, hey, and the activity is coming from the people like us, you know, people who know about the bill and who understand the Occupational Health and Safety Act and so on, but not from the ordinary guy out there, hey, you know, your client who has got a normal sort of company and he does this and he does that, and the last thing he really wants to get involved with is sitting down and interrogating this huge big OHS Act. So I think they rely upon persons like all of us to do the job for them, because at the end of the day, if we don't do it, they're going to be the ones who are going to sit with it and have to put up with what has gone through and what has been promulgated. And this is the reason why I have gone and made these little short information videos, because my clients are those people who don't know the OHS Act and regulations like we do. And you know, I've given them the little bits that I know that they need to know, you know, they need to know.
Well, 𝙤𝙤, that's absolutely, I mean, really, 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 really good. Now, Corin, I've asked you to unmute, if you don't mind. Elmarie, if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to get your commentary as well. And Mirinda, focus on the ladies for a little bit. But those of you that know me and have got to know me over the years, and I met most of you in some other way, fashion, we joke about it when Richard and I had hair. and we had color in our beards. That we've been in the health and safety game that long. But I'm really honestly passionate about getting people empowered so that they can carry on. So it's kind of like each one teach one. So I do something, I show it how you can do it, maybe set an example, give you an idea, and give you a shove. Then you must go do it. Because that way we can affect people literally in the health and safety world. And one of the things that we've noticed, and I did the tally the other day, we've got just under, I think it was 626 people that have joined the coffee club. So if I look at the YouTube channel and the YouTube recordings, when I start calculating how many people have viewed these things, we've had an impact. Some of the videos, I've had 22 views, big deal, so what? But collectively, and now we have a resource. And people, it's free, and people can go to that resource and they can look at and they can use it. And if you want to just sort of hone up on something before you stand up and speak, that's the idea. That's absolutely the idea. Okay, let's see who's there. Corin, yeah, Corin, please unmute yourself. I'm going to pick on you. And you'll get to know that I pick on people. My daughter says, Dad, don't do that. Corin, tell me what your experience has been so far.
Well, it was quite difficult. I'm quite busy with COVID at this stage. So the little time I've got left, I spend on the bowl. It's quite difficult to try and explain to the rest of management the changes. Mm-hmm. They just want the highlights. They don't want the nitty-gritty stuff that can impact them. And it's important that they do know all the changes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, 𝙤𝙤 has created these video clips, and 𝙤𝙤, I'm not too sure. Have you tried to WhatsApp the video clip? Not the URL, but the video clip itself.
Yes, I have. I have actually WhatsApped it, or some of them, and it appears that they go through.
Great. So as a learning point, and this is one of the things that we've learned as a result of firstly COVID and then of course the bill, is that there's all kinds of very interesting little technological hacks that we can do. And if you make a video on Zoom, you can record it, and obviously it's either audio and or video and or PowerPoint and something like that. And if it's short, if it's about 40 minutes for just a pure PowerPoint Zoom, you can WhatsApp it. And that then becomes, Corin, it becomes Corin, then it becomes something that you can send to the management. You can say, here is a video that 𝙤𝙤 made on section 16. And then they can go, oh, how long's the video, 𝙤𝙤?
Sorry, they vary. Some of them are 15 minutes, some of them are 10 minutes, some of them are 8 minutes, you know, so they're very short. And the whole idea is not to bombard them with too much information, because they lose interest so quickly.
Yeah.
Now, of course, Corin, you know that you can get the YouTube URL and you can just send them the URL. And they can watch that 15-minute thing, and you can almost program it in the sense of this is what's going to happen. Now, you can do exactly the same thing for other topics as well. Anything that you are interested in, and you may want to just use WhatsApp as an educational medium, Zoom and WhatsApp and Teams and things. I'm not all that familiar with Teams, but you can do that. Absolutely. Okay, let's see. The other ladies haven't unmuted, but let's go to Trompie. Trompie, has this been useful, my friend?
Yes, I think for me it was very useful. There is a few questions, but I'm still busy catching up. Unfortunately, on this stage, I'm just busy with a lot of other stuff that has to get myself going again. But yes, for me, it was very interesting and educational. And yes, previously you spoke about competent. that was also something that I looked at. And it is very true that the employer is the right person to find the worker competent. So we as trainers can train the person, we can assess him, theoretical and practical, and say, yes, he is competent in that part of it. It has to go to the SETA, yes, and they was verified, but I think the person that was facilitating and assisting is the person really that can say, yes, he was competent in that part. And then with the workbook or through the employer for a period of time, then only the employer will be able to tell you, yes, the person knows what he's doing, or please come back and retrain. There is some of the stuff the person doesn't know. We can't find him competent. So that is what I think.
And something that I picked up from Tibor around this competency thing, it wasn't specific to competency, but he said something. He says, if it's not in the act, don't write it into the act, which is very interesting. So people then, for instance, they would take the construction regulations where it is quite specific that there's an NQF level and an NQF course and an NQF unit standard, and that talks about competency. Bruce, I see you. I'll come back to you in a moment. And that whole concept of having somebody else find the person competent works from an educational point of view, but from a practicality point of view, how does the employer determine that thing? So he was saying, and this reference was to people that say all training must be unit standard aligned. And we've interrogated that, to use your word, 𝙤𝙤. We've gone down the line, and it's not all training. It's only where they say it must be unit standard aligned. And there's a unit standard or approved or accredited. Because that brings me to the next thing, and I'm going to quickly introduce Bruce. Bruce, won't you just say hi to everybody, and then I've got a challenge for everybody that's here. Because now the question is, where to from here? So it sounds like a little town called Soweto. So where to from here? And obviously we want to continue the process with the coffee club, and we want to continue the process in terms of educating and uplifting and recognizing and things like that. So I've got a concept I'd like to share with you. I'd like to invite you to join me with this concept. And I just want to see, by means of a show of hands, if you could just use the little click box thing at the bottom there, if you want to, or just put your hand up. How many of you have ever written a book? 1, 2, 3. Okay, Rian, thank you. How many of you would like to write a book and like some help with that? Got a couple of people. Rian, Richard, who else? Emmanuel. Let's see who else. Bruce, thank you, Bruce. Yep. Trompie. So in essence, what I want to do with the next exercise, and this is where I want to take the coffee club to, because to me, it keeps me busy at lunchtime and keeps you busy as well. But it's also it's stimulating in terms of the thoughts, the thinking process and the ideas. But let's quickly go to Bruce. Bruce, I'm going to ask you to be the last person to comment on your observations of the bill, the processes and things of that nature.
Right, thanks, Ken. Most of you, I think, know me with 𝐿𝙤𝙛𝙛𝙚 and the auditor training and mostly ISO type training that I do. And just to follow on from what Trompie was saying, was that the ISO's definition, which is aimed at the workplace, the functional workplace, is that competency is based on skills, training, and education. And it's the ability of the individual to apply the knowledge, training, and skills for the intended result. Now, who sets up the intended result? It's the employer. So it's got a very simple logical outcome, is that it must suit the employer. The second area that I wanted to just mention today is that an area that has bothered me for a long time, and I think, Ken, you know about this, is the area of enforcement. And when you mentioned today that the lawyers started to pick apart this whole thing and saying, how can you enforce this if it doesn't match up properly, if it's not able to be prosecuted, etc. The legal liability training that I present is only functional, and I mean, lots of companies are doing it, especially the petrochemical companies. They have refreshers on an annual basis, and it's the industry I know well. simply because they need to get it done. And it's one of the, we have to do this kind of things. And the difficulty I have is that senior executives look at the training and go, yeah, sure, we're liable under the OSH Act for this and this and this. But how many prosecutions have happened? How many people are sitting in jail right now? And I can only name about 3 or 4 cases. And they're getting old and they're getting stale. So this morning, just reading a document from the IRR about this whole rioting and so-called insurrection and whatever else was going on. A comment that came up was, is it poverty? Is it unemployment? Is it what is it really? And the outcome of that discussion was lawlessness. Simply where there is a vacuum where prosecution is absent for your act or your omission, then the lawlessness will reign. And the existing OSH Act doesn't have the significant teeth for enforcement. And so it gets largely ignored. And I can see that the danger there is that senior executives realize, you know what, I've got lawyers and stuff, we'll run rings around them, we're not going to get prosecuted, we can just avoid this whole thing completely. So we sit there as practitioners going, you know that 6,000 people a day are dying, how are we going to stop that? Nobody chooses to die when they come to work. They're saying, well, it doesn't matter. It's not irrelevant. So what I want to see, and this is really what I want to get across to the authorities, is I want an enforceable, something that can be prosecuted, real teeth act that actually is going to be effective. What we've got on the table doesn't do that. So if we start from the worst case scenario, somebody does need to pay a price, and we work backwards from there. Do we have the ability to do that? And at the moment, I don't think the old one did it, and the new one doesn't do it. Even the Mine Health and Safety Act is limited. The one that probably has the most teeth is the environmental regulations, as we look at that. So I, as an auditor, I tend to take that worst case scenario look with my clients and with my classes that I teach and say to people, what is the worst thing that can happen? And if it does happen, how prepared are you for that? Because our particular field as practitioners is to be on top of risk. And this OSH Act is supposed to be addressing workplace risk. And it's kind of just gone off the rails. You know, I don't see it really being effective in addressing risk.
And may I just assure you that very topic, Bruce, the unenforceability of it, and the way that they can come, like, it is quite possible. And in fact, Reynard is one of the attorneys or advocates that actually gets people off the hook. So. Yeah,
but the thing is, you know, where a genuine culpability exists, it should be followed.
Oh, yeah.
It should be followed through on. And if we don't have that, and we don't have sufficient case law and case studies and precedent to show that this act has actually got proper teeth, it sort of gets waved off. And that's what's going to happen. And we start becoming less relevant as practitioners in the industry because we're trying to promote something which isn't carrying its own weight that it should. So that's been one of my concerns. This thing sat on the minister's desk in I don't know how many versions for what, 6 years? You know, they would want to pick up a pen and sign
2021. Yeah.
And it's crazy.
So one of the things that
those are my concerns, Ken. And then the where to from here is I'm kind of hoping that what has been put on the table gets a complete rethink underway.
Yeah,
that's what I want to see. But I think Richard's got comments.
You know, some of the things that we've seen and heard is there are a number of large organizations like FEM and so forth, even NUMSA, that have commented on this. And we're going to get a pretty good shakeup when it eventually happens. Now, of course, we do know that we might have elections around the corner and we'll see what happens with that. But a lot of this legislation is sort of universal, it's international, and we'll see what comes of that. Okay, Richard. So Bruce, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Thank you for your input. I'm going to go to Richard, and then I want to make my proposal. One hand up. I can see Richard. Go right ahead, my friend.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, I agree with Bruce wholeheartedly. And isn't it weird? Okay, the Environmental Act gets good attention, but what about Poppy? I mean, everyone's running around in circles with Poppy, but no one gives a monkey's cuss about health and safety. I'm just wondering why. How did Poppy get it right and we got it wrong?
Oh, we had a whole discussion. Bruce knows a friend of ours, a mutual friend, Peter Carruthers, and Peter has made a packet out of Poppy, and he lives in where? Where's he live, in Denmark or Norway or someplace like that?
Norway.
It's the commercial people that have promoted Poppy. And of course, the attorneys have enjoyed it, and there's been all these webinars and stuff like that. But you're quite right, Richard. In fact, just one quick thought. As a result of the fact that Poppy's in place, and we need to be cognizant of the fact that there are penalties and things with the riots recently, the amount of computers that have been stolen with databases and cell phones and things like that, the Poppy registrar is going to have work for the next 20 years. So everybody's going to report, my stuff has been stolen and it's gone. So they have bad timing for that piece of legislation. Okay, so what I want to do is, I'm looking at the clock over here. We've got a couple of another 15 minutes or so. So I regard myself as an educator, and I've been in the training world for years and years and years, and I enjoy the process of training trainers so that the trainers can do the training. And I've gone through the process of also getting our own SETA accreditation, blah, 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 blah. While I spent 5 years at 𝙤𝙤𝙚, I realized that at that stage, 𝙤𝙤𝙚 was kind of the only training establishment out there. I realized that there is education in different forms. And of course, it could be formal education, it could be information, it could be instructions, it could be promotions and things like that. But one of the areas that I honestly believe that we should take seriously is published education, where we publish stuff for other people to read, for other people to use. Because clearly the lack of information, or the lack of education, and the lack of knowledge around health and safety is just totally bizarre. I made a point earlier on one of the sessions where I said, we've got this thing called health and safety, but we can honestly not call ourselves health because we don't know it. We don't know the occupational hygiene, the occupational health. That's a degree normally for somebody to actually understand what occupational health is all about, and occupational hygiene, and the testing and measurements and things like that. And that has kind of bugged me in the sense that even on the SAMTRAC, and I did the SAMTRAC donkeys years ago, there was almost nothing about occupational health. And the emphasis around health and safety, it's safety, 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 safety. What about the health side? So how to address that? Well, there are a couple of things that we could do, and something I'd like to propose and invite everybody to do. Now, this is just completely, it's a free invitation, if you like. I would like you to collaborate with me on writing a simple manual on occupational health, safety, and environment. And I'd like each person to participate and write no more than 2,000 words on a topic that they like, that they know something about, that they would enjoy researching. I see Rion's put his hand up there. Rion, go right ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to let you know that a few years ago, I was asked by the Intelligent Africa to write for them a course, which I've done on occupational health in the workplace, where we looked at compliance of making sure that you have all the programs and all the stuff that they have. So I've already written a full course on occupational health and what the employer is supposed to do, the different types of arrangements that they need to look at the stress levels, at when the person is addictive on any substances, what programs the employer needs to implement, all of those things. So I already have something like that.
Excellent. Okay, then, Rion, thank you. I really appreciate that. And by the way, I know that Deline put a notice over there. Deline, I'm looking for more training material so we can unit standard align it and then make it available into the marketplace for our affiliates. And Rion, if you would like to chat about that as well, I'd love to, absolutely. I just don't have time to sit and research anymore. the business has grown too big. And yet there is space for more training material and training information and training of trainers. So here's my idea. I would like to invite people, yourselves included, to write 2,000 words. And those 2,000 words will go into a blog article or a PDF, shall we call it a magazine, if you like, a guideline. And it's just a general thing on occupational health and safety. And we could have 2 or 3 on electricity and 2 or 3 on chemicals and 2 or 3, just short articles, 2,000 words maximum. And we can put them onto our websites. You can put them onto your website if you wish. I can put them onto my website, and we just have this body of information. Bruce, you'll remember that NOSA had a thing called a NOSA data. Remember those? Martin, you probably know them as well. I've got lots that I scanned before I left Cape Town, but I'm concerned that if I use that material and publish it and put it online, that there might be a copyright infringement. Not exactly sure what that story is. But if you would like to participate in it, I've got a couple of topics. And I want to share this with you, which one can just have a look at. Excuse me, there we go. So these are what I would commonly call toolbox talks. And there's a lot of information which we don't really have freely available. Now, it doesn't have to have PowerPoints, it doesn't have to have visuals, it doesn't have to have any of that, but just general information. And if you look at that, you may find that there are 1 or 2 subjects that you are personally keen on. And I know that Anna-Marie might be here. Anna-Marie, did you see that there is a piece of legislation on children at work? And obviously in the events industry and the show business industry, we use children a lot. So maybe you could write an article on that. And then there's one over here, we've been talking about off-the-job safety, which has now become this work-from-home safety thing. Somebody could write an article on that. And then I'm just looking around here and I'm going food safety, forestry, lockouts, tag out, lotto. We could write an article on that. Could write an article on working in confined spaces or environmental management, or even just working with dangerous goods. I mean, just look at that list over there. There's just so much. I wrote a program on the noise-induced hearing loss regulations, but that's a lot of information. I happen to be an audiometrist. But looking at that list over there, hopefully you can see that list. I just want to see if I can move this bar up here. Scaffolding and science and labeling and slinging and rigging and smoking and stacking and storage and statistics and stress and substance abuse. Rian's just mentioned substance abuse. That could be an article on its own. And sun protection and. So this is, in a way, going to replace, I'm going to stop the share, it's going to replace the then NOSA datas. And I'd like to make it available freely. And you can use it yourself as a promotion. You can use it as an educational tool. You can take it, cut it, paste it. You can compile it, as long as we give the originator, the author, the necessary recognition. I think that that's very important. So every one of those, the people that submit an article, you can, Corin, you work in an environment where you have finger incidents all the time, needles through fingers, fingers being chopped off, fingers, those cutting devices. So you could maybe just talk about and write about that. And any other things that just come to mind. Now, I don't mind if you write 6 articles or 20 articles. Marius has already got 14 articles that he's worked out in his brain. That will dip, and he's going to go and do the research. Then I will take the article, you submit it to me with your permission, and I will give it to my daughter, who is a moderator. I think you know Natalie, some of you know of Natalie. She did a media degree. She's excellent. Her English is just phenomenal. She writes copy for people's websites. She's really good. And she'll take it and clean it and edit it. Then I have an editor in the form of my retired brother, who is a wordsmith. He used to be with Reader's Digest for many, many years. And he's a real wordsmith. I mean, this guy is just a pain in the backside. Absolute pain. Love him to bits. And he edits every single one of my documents, and not documents, my books. And he's done 4 or 5 now. And then we make this available. Just make it available. And if you'd like to participate, I'd love you to participate. Then if you happen to be a commercial operator, Trompie, then I would suggest that just at the end of it, you just say, who are you, what's your background, and what services do you have available for people to use in the marketplace? And we can distribute this. How this is all going to pan out, I don't know. But when we started with the coffee club, I didn't know. I just got this idea one day and I was standing in the shower. Let's start a coffee club. Let's start OHS webinars and Zoominars and things like that. So if you're keen, please let me know. I'd really, really appreciate that. And then we can divvy up the topics or just take the topics that are available. And this group can just discuss it and we can put this together. Okay, so that was my first one. Anybody here think that it's a reasonable idea and would like to collaborate and contribute? Just stick your hand up. There's the little hand up thing at the bottom there. Okay, wow, right. That's cool. Troppie, jy kan skryf, broer. Jy kan in Afrikaans skryf en ons kan dit vertaal. If you happen to be Afrikaans speaking, and thank you, I see lots of hands up here. One of our affiliates, Terry de Blanche, speaks about 6 languages and translates into 6 languages, which is just quite phenomenal. So we can translate it into other languages if necessary, or translate it from your first language into your second language, or second language to first language, and stuff like that. Great, that looks fantastic. So I would love to work with you. Now this could keep you busy for a while, eh? With all the knowledge you've got, and we share knowledge with young people.
Nice. Ken, I also thought it may be wise for you to mention who you expect to be the audience, who these toolbox talks are going to go out to. Then people will know at what level to write them.
Excellent question. Thought about that. My suggestion is at supervisor level. So the person is relatively au fait with workplaces, and they can then use it as a toolbox talk for their staff or their teams or someone like that. And if we don't make it academically too difficult, a lot of I see people that they go and do a degree, they come up and they don't know anything about health and safety. It's just disastrous. It's horrible. That's the audience, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Ken, then just a note that if you write something, take your text, put it into the gunning fog index. And if you want to make sure a supervisor can read it, it should be about an 11. You know, round about the score of an 11 for readability. In other words, simple language. Because, you know, the ISO standards are 22 to 26. Supervisors don't understand the wording. Legislation, especially POPI Act. Why are people making money on POPI Act? It's written at about a level 30. It's written by lawyers, for lawyers, to be able to charge you, to unpack it for you, because that's what they wanted to do. So we need to make it as simple and easy as possible. And gunning fog is fantastic. And Hemingway for your language and grammar. It sounds like your brother's a grammar Nazi.
Grammar Nazi, yeah. Yeah.
You know, you read something and goes, that's wrong. That's the wrong punctuation. This is the wrong emphasis. So that's all I'm saying is if you write an article, before you send it off to anybody, just take it and open gunning fog index on your browser, pop your text in, let it score, and then try and tone it down if it's scoring above an 11 or 12. That'll make it very readable for most people.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Bruce, he he reads Hebrew. I wouldn't know where to begin with that language. Richard, Richard's got his hand up.
No, that was just to say, yes, I'd like to write something. But I would base it on my experience of things that have gone wrong and make a subject out of one thing that's gone wrong. Like, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And if there's anybody that has a specific insight into a piece of legislation, so I can't see Rion's name here still, but if let's say Rion is still here, Rion, if you know something about a specific reg, you may want to just write a synopsis of that regulation. Martin's got his hand up. Are you volunteering, or you want to quickly contribute?
No, I just want to say I've been for years, I've been collecting irregular hazards and risks. I can call it irregular. Something like what are the hazards for the people that work in the field?
Excuse me, gesticulating here.
And spiders and insect bites and stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah. And such type of things, and I read a lot and do a lot widely research. For instance, ladies who walks with high heels in an office environment, that is classified as a risk because it does not support the ankles properly. You know, and you as a presenter, your voice is a risk because that is the tool you use to present and things like that. So I'm busy collecting a lot of scenarios like that, which I want to put either on the same thing as 𝙏𝙤𝙚 on short video clips explaining these things, and create the environment where it comes from. So it's quite very interesting to see things that we miss completely in certain jobs
100%.
which we overlooked completely. So that is what I'm collecting information now about. But I also want to put it in a book now that you suggest the publication.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Now, obviously, anything you write, you own. You own that. So you may want to write some subject. Bruce and Michelle and I had a discussion the other night, and one of the other participants was Mike Perry, and Mike Perry is the snake guy. So I would, from a works perspective, love to have an article on snakes in the workplace, and whatever is appropriate. Richard, I can see your cat, the cat's tail. Fantastic. Okay, so if you don't mind, because time is running out, can you just pop me a message saying, just go book, just write book, and then I can start talking, and then talking to you. Then I'm going to go back to share screen. This list over here, I'm going to put it together. It's already alphabetical, but I'm just going to put it together as a checklist. Put it into a Word document and then a PDF file, and I'll send it to you, and then you can have a look at it and say, well, that one, and that one. Now, obviously, if we have too many of the same topic, let's say we've got 10 people writing on lockouts, it's going to defeat the purpose or point. But I think we'll be able to put something together, and it's those three topics. It's occupational health, occupational hygiene, occupational safety. Those are the three. However, environment is something that if you are knowledgeable about, it would be useful to have an overview of that. Thank you. I can hear my phone going. So that we've got this kind of general reference guide. Now, if you were to say to me, what are you going to do with it eventually? My objective is we have them as blog articles. We could put them onto our website. We can have a downloadable PDF. It's something that if anybody reads, they will see who it is that made that contribution. And then it's a little bit of an advert, because that's the way you would be paid for actually making this contribution. I would then like to say one last thing, and this just brings me back to 𝙏𝙤𝙚, and it's this, and Martin's just mentioned it. Nothing stops you from making short videos on that topic, which you can share with your clients. You can sell to your clients. Nothing stops you from doing that. And I'm going to ask 𝙏𝙤𝙚 at some stage just to explain to us, we'll do a share screen, on how you actually put something together on PowerPoint with audio and video. And 𝙏𝙤𝙚's got this little editing tool that she's using. It's a PowerPoint plugin or something like that. Now, I would love to see that, 𝙏𝙤𝙚, and I've never done that kind of thing. So I think that would be useful, because we all in a situation now with the economy as it is, all of us, we have to get greater publicity. We've got to be seen. If people can't find us in the marketplace, our market, sorry, Karen, you could be a possible client, but our market is being overwhelmed by other demands, other things that are happening. And we were talking about Poppy and Paya and things of that nature. And this is a lovely marketing tool. I've got a little 10-minute video. It's 11 minutes on what we do. And I was looking at it this morning. There's over 600 hits or views or whatever, clicks onto that video. And it took me a morning to put together. And it's just a PowerPoint presentation. So this is something that you could do. So with that, sure. The last thing that I want to mention on my notes over here is that it's been an absolute joy and privilege for me to do this, to run the coffee club, but it's become quite a lot of work. So I sent out a survey saying, what's the best time of the day, 1 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and what day and how often, bi-monthly, twice a month, or weekly. And the overwhelming, and I'm actually grateful for that, the overwhelming thing is people are saying 6 o'clock in the evenings, and we'll do it bi-monthly. But then there were a lot of people that said, I can make the lunchtime thing because I've got Wi-Fi, I've got time, I've got a lunchtime, I've got my coffee mug there. So just arbitrarily, I'm going to suggest that we do the following, is that every second Wednesday, we'll do it in the evening. So it's bi-monthly. And every fourth Wednesday, we'll do it at lunchtime. And for instance, I could then say to 𝙏𝙤𝙚, can you share for half an hour on how you put this PowerPoint together? So it's not just subject matter, but it's also tools. And I'll just want to take a bit of a break here because it takes quite a lot of effort and energy to put this into, and I love it, I love it, I love it. But our own business needs to get a bit more attention. Penny goes, hey, got to make money. Stop running these free things. So Marius, ek wil gou ietsie vir jou sê. Jy het gesê jy wil nie geld uit die storie uitmaak nie, maar as jy in besigheid is, moet jy geld maak, broer. Gelukkig is jy in 'n situasie waar jy in 'n werksplek is, maar as jy if you're a entrepreneur, you have to make money. So it's one of the things that Penny's been saying. So there we go. And with that, I think I've said everything. I've got my little list over here, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I'll send the dates out in advance, and then we'll try and get speakers in advance, and we will publish it so you know twice a month this will be happening, and you can then book yourself into it. And if you can't make it, then of course you can watch the video. Any comments, any insights, anything that you may have, please send to me. I'd appreciate that. I love these events. I really, really do. And it's kept me in touch with our clients. And I trust that you've also picked up on it and you're doing the same sort of thing for your clients or your own teams and your health and safety committees and things of that nature. So what I'll do now is just going to ask once everybody just unmute yourself and one quick round of commentary, and then we're going to hang up for the day.
Not all together.
Hi, guys.
I've just seen my cat.
Thanks, guys. I've got another call to join, so I really enjoyed it, and I'll be looking forward to the next one. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, guys.
Can you just make sure that I've got your telephone number? Can you WhatsApp me your number?
Yes, I'll do that right now. Thank you.
Just to make sure that you're on the list. Excellent. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Anybody
everybody.
else?
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Great being part of this
Food
group.
for thought there, Ken. Yeah.
Say again. Sorry, Richard.
Sorry, I interrupted somebody else.
Okay. Not a problem at all. I see Elmary's unmuted. Elmarie, enige woorde van jou kant af?
Well, it has been very, very educational. I've been in the business, worked with health and safety for the last 30 odd years. And I feel like a 3-year-old because it's wow and wow and wow. So I want to thank you all for your dedication and your help. And I'm fully on board to take this further.
Fantastic. Thanks, Elmarie. I really appreciate that. That's cool. Yeah, and we'd value that. Value the different perspectives. To me, I see you unmuted as well.
I can. Thank you so much, man. I'm trying to grasp everything at the same time. I've got a couple of notes that I made regarding the OHS bill that I would like to share with you. But you'll be seeing me more often. I've been off, under the weather, sick, isolated, all kinds of things, but I'm back now. And you'll see me more often. And thank you so much. I got my SETA accreditation finally. Yay! So yes, we'll be seeing more of me. Thank you.
Red Apple.
So much. Thank you so much, Ken.
Tumi's company is called Red Apple.
That's correct.
And yeah, I like the name.
Yes.
I like the name.
Thank you. Thank you. I love it. I love red apples. Thank you so much.
Fantastic, Tumi. Thanks so much. Rian, I saw you put your hand up or unmuted yourself. Any comments from your side?
I just want to also thank you for taking the time, having us on this platform. I really enjoyed it. I also met a lot of you guys, and I'll hope to see us in the future more and more, so that we can just keep on doing what we are doing. So,
fantastic.
Ken, thank you for the opportunity.
Rian, it's been a pleasure. I mean, I obviously enjoy this. My next life, I'm going to be a radio announcer. And then the life thereafter, I'm going to be an attorney. So I'm not too sure which one's going to come first. Great. Emmanuel, we've not heard anything from you. And Peter Hayes, we've not heard from you either. So maybe if you guys would like to just unmute yourselves and let's just hear what you have to say, starting with Emmanuel.
He doesn't have sound.
Oh, he doesn't have. Is he sitting next to you?
Yes.
Call him. Call him. Call him. Call him. Emmanuel, come on, brother. You show your face here.
I'm doing this.
We will make you a Zoom star yet. So, Emmanuel, any comments from your side?
What I can say about this coffee club is that the past few months that I've been with Gordon, working with Gordon, I haven't known, I don't have much experience with the health and safety, but listening to this coffee club on a Wednesday has informed me a lot. And I also watch the videos on YouTube afterwards or ones I've missed. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Emmanuel, you're really welcome, man. Thank you. Thanks for participating in the courses and things like that as well. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Emmanuel. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Get your own Pepco, is that right? Pepco. YouTube channel up and running there. Right. Well, that's about it. Better let the cat out. He's making a noise if he wants to get out. I locked him in. So thank you, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll publicize the dates, and then we'll pick up one in the lunchtime and one in the evening. That's 2 a month. So everybody, thank you so much. All the best. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye for now.
Thank you.
This is
Ciao, ciao.